I'm here in the historic Otway Ranges and I'm about to meet a dog with a very important job. He tracks Australia's most elusive and adorable predator, the Tiger Quoll. I'm Sarah Jones, welcome to Dog Jobs Australia. Here in the Otway Ranges lives one of Australia's most unique and interesting native species, the Tiger Quoll. Meet Udder. This lovable former rescue dog plays a key role in protecting local quoll habitat. I'm about to get to know him and his owner Luke from Canada Development. So Luke, you started Canada Development.
Yep.
What were you doing beforehand that led up to working with dogs?
Well, my very first introduction to dogs was actually as a dog groomer, of all things.
Yeah.
Mobile.
I mean, Udder does have a lovely coat,
Yeah.
so you've obviously kept a little bit of that still.
Doing all this dog grooming, it was actually about training a dog to go through a routine to learn how to bath, and it was a 20-minute routine. So that's what it was all about. And then I got my very first dog, Delta, who was a golden retriever. And she learned how to, she was taught to be a search and rescue dog to find people in collapsed buildings. So that's where my dog training part came into it.
So you actually did that with your golden, going the search and rescue?
Yeah, so like if there was a collapsed building like an earthquake or in Australia, I suppose the most recent one that we've had in Australia is up at Thredbo with Stuart Diver, and we didn't have any dogs in the country at that stage. So. Internationally, they're used quite widely. So I founded an organisation. I didn't want to train dogs for competition or simple obedience. She was really intelligent, so I was, this is something I can get into. So we started volunteering doing that and just learned how to handle a dog through all of that. And then in 2013 had the opportunity was asked to, can I train a dog to find koala scats?
Wow.
I was like, you know what, if I can train them to find a person buried under a building, I'm pretty sure I can train a dog to find koala scats. So it sort of started from there, and it's just grown, and we're just working on different species. We've got 5 dogs now that are working doing multiple species on multiple different environmental projects.
Yeah, so when you talk about a dog being trained to find that koala scat, even though they're being trained specifically to find koalas, you can introduce new scents at a later point if you want to track a different species? Yeah,
so normally our process is we've got about 18 months and we go through a full 18-month training program from 8 weeks through to 18 months of age, and that's just on one odour. So they're learning all the skills that they require to be able to go out into the environment and search to find that odour in that environment. Learn all the distractions that happen out here. It's a dynamic search area, unlike a lot of working with dogs.
Customs or something like that, very contained.
It's kind of a sterile environment. It's contained, it's under a lot of control out here. We've got kangaroos, we've got wallabies, there's all sorts of things crawling underneath all this undergrowth. And so we can't have dogs interested in chasing animals, going after animals, so they've got to be used to this dynamic environment, and they're working off lead, so all of that obedience stuff comes into it as well, being really under control, and the handler plays a big part in all of that, managing, I suppose they're the manager of the search, where the dog does all the finding of the stuff that we want, and the handler is here to get that big overview of going, okay, this is where I'd like to search. I need the dog to go over here. I need them, hang on, I actually need you to come back to me and search this direction and that sort of stuff, and manage their welfare as well.
Of course. And you mentioned the word obedience, but it sounds like a lot of it is the animal's choice and responding to the animal rather than you being the one in charge that's, telling the animal what to do. You're the one actually listening, and it's the animal. Yeah,
so with Udder, when we're going out searching, he's out in front of me. He's got to be obedient, and that's definitely part of it. He's also got to be independent and have the confidence to go out in front and go and explore and exhibit all the natural behaviours a dog would exhibit. And then, if they do find it, they've got to have that ability to independently alert on something. So they can't be, any cues from the handler. When we're searching this environment looking for the real thing, we have no idea where it is. We can have a guess at this is good habitat, this is a location we might find it from experience, so we can sort of guide a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, the dog's got to go, I've recognised that odour and I've got to tell my handler this is exactly where it is, and it has to happen all independently from the dog.
Yeah, and with such a smart dog, you don't want to accidentally train them to do the wrong thing.
No.
And then that training is going to be very hard to shift.
And that's with our hugely important with the odour, with the way that we handle the odour. We're making sure no contaminants are in there, whether it's contaminants from the human, so they're not just tracking the scat that I've laid down personally, or they're not just tracking an individual, or we don't introduce an odour accidentally. So Udder's trained to find Tiger Quoll scats, which look very similar to fox scats.
Right.
So he's got to be able to distinguish the difference between the both of them and communicate, this is Tiger Quoll scat, and ignore all the fox scats.
About that.
Yeah, and then you're talking about animals that have got similar diets.
Yeah.
They're out in this environment. We're finding it in the same location. The dog's got to be able to distinguish between that, and that all occurs through a training process of
really big
discrimination and elimination of a whole different range of things. So.
And you were telling me earlier that there's a little bit of training that goes into helping the dog make the right choices and want to learn.
So all the training, particularly around the odour part of the training, is the dog has to be able is making their own decisions. So we start off a really controlled process where the dog is investigated and all of a sudden a reward comes out for sticking their nose close to the odour. And then we're offering them choices, so it can be, here's a whole heap of your food or your reward over here, and here's the odour over here. Make a choice.
I know my dog would definitely fail that.
And something like it's a really interesting process to go through, because depending on how much training has gone into a dog previously, they may offer a sit behaviour, a drop, or all of it. They may go through a whole range of tricks before they offer the behaviour.
Really trying to work out what you need to give them that treat.
They know that I get this if I do something, and then it's about them working out what behaviour is going to get that reward. So they've got to go through that process of learning, and that creates that independence. So they go, okay, I'm doing this, that didn't work. I'm doing this, that didn't work. I did this, that worked. So they're learning that. They learn by that independence, and that helps when we're out in the field. You say, oh, I know that odour, and this is what I've got to do when I'm out in the field, and they don't rely on the handler to create any sort of alert behaviours.
Well, before we see Udder in action, I'm keen to get up close and personal with a quoll, a sentence I never thought I'd say out loud.
Whilst filming Dog Jobs Australia in Victoria's Otway's region, our crew chose to stay at the beautiful Alkena Lodge. The majestic Southern Ocean, the awe-inspiring 12 Apostles, endless desolate beaches, abundant native wildlife, and the enchanting Great Ocean Road. This is the setting for the Alkena Lodge experience, 3 unique architecturally designed private contemporary residencies designed for discerning travellers who want to reconnect and refresh. You're sure to make memories here that will last a lifetime. To book your stay at Alkena Lodge, head to alkenalodge.com.au.
We've made our way to the Conservation Ecology Centre in Cape Otway. Here they work to deliver solutions to the most urgent conservation challenges of the local region. Nature guide and wildlife keeper Emma McKenzie is about to introduce me to their resident Tiger Quoll, who has a pretty fantastic name. Well, I'm here with Emma from the Conservation Ecology Centre, and we are about to meet a local celebrity. Her name is Nicquoll. She is a Tiger Quoll, and I believe you weren't responsible for that fantastic name, were you, Emma?
No, we had a competition and put it out to her fans.
Okay, yeah, Nicquoll, what a perfect name for a lovely lady. So you've got a little bit of food. Can we have a look at what she's dining on today?
Delicious. So we've got a bit of everything, a bit of beef with bones, a bit of chicken, bit of
yum, yum.
all the good stuff.
So are quolls obligate carnivores? They only eat meat?
Mostly, yeah. So they're pretty good hunters. They're mostly nocturnal hunters. They'll hunt for pretty big things like possums or paddy melon.
Yeah, wow. Paddy melon. Yeah. They're quite big.
Yeah,
quite
down
sizable.
in Tasmania, it's a huge part of their diet.
Yeah, incredible. Well, she is having a little bit of a snooze at the moment, but we're going to see if we can tempt her with these delicious delights.
Hopefully.
Yep. And quolls are obviously, this type of quoll, the Tiger Quoll, is local to the area, but they're very critically endangered, is that right?
Yeah, we have been out looking for them. It was a big part of what we've been doing since about 2012.
And that's where the dogs come in, of course, to be tracking them. So you work a lot with the dogs that track the scats of quolls, and those scats tend to be concentrated in a particular area often. Is that where you're finding them?
Yes, so the tiger quolls, because they have such large areas where they live, they like to mark their territories, especially the males. They will scat along the edges, but what they have so they can all find each other, especially during breeding season, is called a latrine site. So they all like to go in the same spot, and that way they know who's around for breeding, who's ready to breed, and they can use those trails to go find each other.
Right. And Nicquoll's here by herself. She's a solitary lady. Is that how they prefer to live?
Yeah. In the wild, they're a solitary animal.
But they do come
hunt
together
by themselves. But yes, for breeding, that's when they'll find each other.
And they're having those large litters, but you did say that there was something pretty special, pretty remarkable about those litters, potentially?
Yeah, so a male may have multiple females in that area, and they may visit those females for breeding, but a female also may have multiple visits. And she actually has the ability to choose which males she decides to have their young. And she can have multiple paternities. So she could have 6 young from 6 different males.
The same litter from 6 different males. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so they get the fittest.
It's time to get back to Luke and Udder, so I might let Nicquoll eat in peace. I'd hate to get in between a lady and her lunch. Well, Emma, I know you've spread lots of delicious meaty treats all through this enclosure. So Nicquoll is about to have a lovely feast and explore this space, so we might let her have her lunch.
Yeah, she'll be pretty happy with the smorgasbord she's got today.
Fantastic. So Udder's tracking tiger quolls at the moment, but I believe he's tracked other species as well?
Yeah, so Udder was part of a proof of concept with Zoos Victoria, and one part of that project was to locate borbor frogs. So completely different species. So we can train our dogs to find multiple odours once they got to a certain level. And a borbor frog is about that big. They're dark brown in colour. They live in dark brown environments. And only the males call. So, and there's only a certain time of the year that they're actually calling. Females don't, so it makes it very difficult to actually locate females.
So if you're just tracking the calls, you're only getting half the picture potentially?
Yeah. And the frog lives in crevices or in burrows or under stuff, so it's not like a scat that's on top of the ground. Yeah. This is actually, potentially could be a couple of metres underground, or so it's a completely different environment, different odour, and a different training process involved as well, because rather than going from an inanimate object, we're going to actually looking for a live animal. So it was a really interesting process to go through with the dogs. Udder's brother was involved as well, Rubble, and both the dogs were successful at locating borbor frogs.
Did they work together, or is it always an independent
Always
process?
Separately, yeah.
Always separately.
The way that I work with dogs is most dogs that I've got trained on, so I'll have two dogs trained on one odour, and rather than going out and working all day just with one dog, I can put one dog away and have a rest while I get the other dog out, and so we actually just rotate through the day. Good welfare outcome for the dogs when we're doing this. We're not pushing them extremely hard, and they've got time to actually sit back and rest and relax during the day while the other dog's out working. And it also creates a little bit of competition.
Okay, some healthy competition
Yeah,
between siblings.
It's my time to work. So it helps with a little bit with that motivation. So they take the time to rest, and then when we come back to the ute, it's like, who's going out next? So being able to have that, and for me, we're using animals for the research purposes and looking for that, and we're out here trying to help other animals and understand other animals. We're also using these animals, and so that welfare perspective is hugely important. Being able to manage them in this environment, but also look for the longevity. All my dogs are with me for life, so in their retirement, they're still going to be with me. We look for other jobs that they might be able to do in retirement.
You mentioned earlier that there's a retirement plan for your dog?
So all of my dogs have a retirement plan, whatever it might be. And one of the goals that we're investigating at the moment is the potential for Brubble, who's now 10 years old. He still loves going out and doing some of the detection work. He just can't do it to the level of, say, an Udder, who's 6 years old. But he's such a stable dog. He loves people, so we're looking at the possibility that he can go into an emotional support type role and help people out, in times of stress and that sort of stuff. So we're looking at different roles that the dogs can take on at different stages of life.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing Udder work, so let's go see him do his stuff.
Udder! Hey, you ready? Yeah, all ready to go, aren't you, mate? Tiger Quolls use a latrine site, so there'll be a number of scats all in the same location.
Okay.
So we may find a whole heap of scats, collect it all up, and then we can ask Udder to come back in and see if we've missed any. So there'll be a number of individuals that have all used that latrine site, so we can actually collect a lot of different DNA samples and get a good sense.
So you're actually DNA sampling to differentiate that, we have 5 quolls here, for example.
Yeah,
Wow.
You can check and also do analysis on their diet, see what they're eating, any diseases. So there's a lot of information. That's why we look for scat. We don't have to look for the animal.
Yeah, I thought maybe that it was just more about tracking the animal, and the scat is something that smells strong, so easy to track, but you can obviously get so much information.
Yeah, and that's the point of finding scats. We don't have to necessarily interfere with the animal itself. We find this, we can do a census, essentially like a census on the population within that area based on the scat samples that we find.
That's incredible.
So that's why this is hugely important.
It's gold.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, even when you've just placed it there, it does camouflage pretty well.
Yeah, so if you think about, if that's been sitting there for a while, we've had wind that may have, just normal exposure to the weather extremes, that can be covered over. It can start to decompose and break down. So being able to use a dog to find that, if we were just walking through the bush and our eyesight's really limited, so we can see, okay, the wind's coming from a certain direction today, so it's coming over here. We can work out then where the dog might pick up from and which way they're going, what their behaviour will be based on all the environmental conditions that are around us. And then, we'll go and follow him in. This all suggests to him, yep, we're going to work, and building this up, being able to learn to wear a harness, be able to wear a collar that's fairly weighty, and all of this starts to go, he starts to see it, he gets out and you'll see exactly the routine, and this routine is trained from, when we start doing this odour training, this becomes part of the routine instantly, so he knows once all this is out, work's on.
He's in sort of work mode.
Yeah. Hey mate, you ready? Yeah, get the harness on. So everything's tracked, so we know where he's been, what he's covered. So when we do post-analysis, we can go, yep, this is where he's been, what we've covered. We can work out the environmental conditions and work out all of those sorts of things. Hey, you ready, mate? Hey, you ready? Yeah, let's go. Hey. So you can see that he really gets his nose to it.
Yeah, I
and
see what you mean. And he's looking back at you, just sort of confirming that you're seeing what he's seeing.
Yeah,
Giving you a few extra noses.
So he's like, yep, I've got it.
And the tail's going, so he clearly feels pretty satisfied with his work today.
Yeah. So,
Knows he did a good thing.
and once we get to this, like the next part of the stage is, we've got to collect it, and this is the ultimate reward. Hey, yeah, good boy. Hey, yeah. Hey, oh, he's a good boy. Hey. Good boy. Hey, yeah.
His recall straight away.
Good boy, sit. Hey. So being able to recall, he's going off into an area. You can see just over here the vegetation and how thick it's starting to get with the bracken and that sort of stuff. So being able to maintain that visual with the dog as well is really important. Hence the high-vis jacket.
Yeah, sure.
Makes it really easy to sort of see. We can track him on the GPS, that's not a problem. But then, being able to visually see where he is as well. Good boy. Yeah, good boy, you sit. Oh, well done. Oh, you're a good boy. You want to go back to work, don't you?
Well, that brings us to the end of another great episode of Dog Jobs Australia. We got to meet a couple of quolls and, of course, our favourite four-legged friends. Remember, if you've missed an episode, you can always catch up on our YouTube channel. See you next time.